Hey, what's going on, everybody? Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NBA and the NFL. I have a brand new video for you, ladies and gentlemen. Before I get started with the video, like always, I appreciate you guys to drop a like. And if you're new to the channel, first time here, never ever seen any of my NBA or NFL lineup advice videos, and you want to be able to get information that can help you with your lineups on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, the only thing you need to do to be a part of the DFS Zone community, ladies and gentlemen, is to subscribe down below. And make sure you put on your post notification bell icon, that icon right next to the subscribe button. You got to click on that so this way it's turned on, and with that you'll get the notifications when I post up a new NBA or NFL lineup advice video. With that being said, today is Monday, December the 17th, 2018. We have an 8-game slate in the association tonight. And let's just dive right in. We have point guard today. Up at the top, man, there's going to be, now again, I'm going to always give you guys options here. I'm not going to just go over one player. I'm going to go over a couple of players. I'm going to tell you who I have the most exposure to. I'm going to let you know whom, if this is your first time here, I basically give you my opinion, my suggestions on some of the plays. There's always going to be one favorite player, and there's going to be some players that I'm going to have some exposure to because I play multiple lineups. I'm mostly a GPP player, so I play multiple lineups, and of course I'm going to have exposure to a couple of players, especially on a pretty decent slate like this, an 8-game slate. So at the top here, Russell Westbrook is definitely in play for me against Chicago. No Zach LaVine, no doubt about it. I could see him. He's going to go up against Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn is not the greatest defender, but he's not a bad defender. So I definitely like the matchup for Russell Westbrook. 11,006 is quite a bit of money, but he is capable of definitely meeting value and exceeding value. We know he's capable of a double-double any single night, and he's capable of a triple-double as well. So he is someone that you definitely should always consider in favorable matchups. Ben Simmons, I'm not on today against San Antonio, but he is definitely someone you can consider in my own personal player pool. I definitely will have Russell Westbrook. I'm not so much on Curry today, even though his price tag is very nice. Going at home versus Memphis. Memphis is just they're a paced down team. I would like to see more or less first with so many other options here today that are in more favorable matchups. I'd rather pass on Curry for 9,600 at home, and if they do well there, then at least you will have a notation that maybe you may consider Curry or Durant or anybody else in that, for that matter, the next time they play Memphis. But today there's definitely some other options. I'm definitely coming down. It says here game time decision, personal matter. This was due to yesterday. Today, I doubt very much Damian Lillard is going to be out. I like Damian Lillard here. He's the first guy I'm going to talk about today. Other than Russell Westbrook that I'm going to have exposure to, I'm going to have the most exposure to Damian Lillard here as well. He's coming in here. It's 27 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 43.3 fantasy points per game. He's at 8,800 and E44, and on DK he's the same price. So obviously his price looks a lot more appealing here for us on Fanduel, for Fanduel players. Been pretty solid. You know, we know what we're going to get with Damian Lillard. You know, I mean, he's averaging 44, but we know he has got 50-point upside or better. He usually has a fairly decent floor. He goes Damian Lillard here. And as you can see, there's a lot of red here, but again, at the same time, there's some 50s, some 60s. He's at 44, 45, and 46 in between here, slapped in between these guys. Last 3 games, not as good, but you know, again, his price tag is down, which is another thing I like so much here. As you can see, he was priced at $89.97, even to $10,200 just a couple of games ago, a week ago, and he's at $8,800. So I want to take advantage of the discount here. He's going to play more than enough minutes. We know that. 4 out of the last 5 games, he's had 36 plus. He's also has had in that game stretch, in that same span, he's also played at least 35 minutes or better in a number of the games too, 36, 39, 38. So the minutes are there. Usage is going to be there. He's pretty much at about 30, 31% on average. And then, of course, he's going to get some shots. We know we're going to get shots from Lillard. I mean, he is definitely a very, very big part of the offensive system here for the Portland Trail Blazers. And he's going to be able to take some shots from 3 as well. He's taken about 3 or 4 maybe on average, or 5 per game. Hasn't been shooting the 3 ball as consistent. He did shoot well in his last game out. He is definitely a good free throw shooter, so if you get him on the line, he's going to convert quite a bit and as often as possible. He'll give you some rebounds, not a whole lot. He'll definitely get you some assists, and he brings a little bit of defense. He's capable of getting you some steals and blocks. So you can see here, those are very important aspects that we want from a point guard or a guard in general, which I always speak about here at DFS Zone, is that we look for those guards that definitely do some other things other than just score. You know, on the road, he's been at 43% field goal percentage, 34% from three. He's averaging 28 points per game, and he's also averaging 46.5 fantasy points per game on the road. He has played already 2 games against the Clippers this year, and not too bad, 39 and 40 in those games against these guys. Shot 44% from the floor, 30% from three, 27 points on average pretty much in those 2 games, and 42 fantasy points. But again, we have a guy here with 60-point upside. His price is down. We got to take advantage of the discount of $8,800. You know, and then he's going up against the Clippers. They're 13th in defending point guards, as you can see here on the cruncher. Allowing in the last 5 games, they've been allowing 34.9. So I round that off to 35 fantasy points per game, 56 points. In the last few games, in the last game they gave up 56 to Westbrook, 31 the previous game to Van Fleet, 33 to Milton, 47 to Winslow, and 45 to Connolly. So again, if these guys can get 40 to 45. Westbrook obviously is one of the top dogs in the league. I still do believe that Damian Lillard can get that done as well. If you're not on Lillard or Westbrook, some other possible plays here. Again, you know, there are some injuries that I did not discuss. When we come here at the point guard position, the only ones that are actually, there is no major injuries here in the point guard spot for tonight, other than Lillard's personal. We know he's going to play tonight. Other than that, the next matchup I like Mr. Bledsoe here. Bledsoe going here 7,900. That's definitely someone to consider here, especially if there's no Middleton, to love him even more. Especially if there's no Brogdon, you got to even love him even more than that. I think both of those guys will play today, or at least one of them will play today, so maybe it's someone not to consider. But if those guys are out, if both of them are out, or at least Middleton is out, you're definitely going to have to consider Giannis as well today, as well as Eric Bledsoe. So I like Bledsoe here as well. He's someone that I'm going to probably have some exposure to due to the matchup with Detroit. Not only that, he's actually played pretty well against Detroit. Detroit has been allowing, as of late, just to make a notation, 40 fantasy points per game thus far in the last 5 games. They gave up 48 to Kyrie Irving, 59 to Walker, and 47 and 51 respectively to Ben Simmons in 2 matchups. And they also gave up 50 points to Drew Holiday. And these are all in the last 5 to 6 games. So they have definitely had their issues. So Eric Bledsoe should be in a good spot, and more so, definitely, again, more importantly, if Middleton is out or Brogdon, definitely will have more exposure to Eric Bledsoe. De'Aaron Fox is my boy. I'm going to be on him again a little bit in some of my lineups. So I definitely will have some exposure to De'Aaron Fox against Minnesota. You got to possibly consider Emmanuel Mudiay here. 6,300 price is a little up, but he's playing massive minutes for the Knickerbockers. And at the same time, I mean, maybe he'll get a little bit of a hit here with Trey Burke back. But he's been playing so well, I think Coach Fizdale is going to be utilizing him the most out of all those guys. Come down here if you want to save a little bit. Maybe Milton in that same matchup against New York, which is going to be probably a high-scoring game. Both teams don't play defense fairly well, so I definitely expect to have some exposure to that game, period. I think everybody should have quite a bit of exposure to the Phoenix-New York game. Come down a little bit lower. Ryan Arcidiacono is definitely in play for me at 4,400. With Zach LaVine out, he has been starting. He has played, I think, over 30 minutes, and he's actually played fairly well back again. I mean, if he gets the minutes, he's going to definitely contribute. He put 32 spot in the last game in 38 minutes, so not too bad. So Ryan Arcidiacono will be in my player pool, and I will have exposure to him as well. If you want to come down a little bit lower, Jimmy Butler's back. TJ McConnell will probably get a few minutes, but not as much as he was getting before. Like I said, Burke will be someone to watch out for. 4,000. If he gets 20, 25 minutes, you know he's dangerous. He can put up 30 to 35 in that amount of time very quickly. You want to save even more. There's 2 guys here at the bottom that you got to watch out for that drop spot price. These 2 guys right here, Hill going up against Detroit, would not be a possible bad play if there is no Middleton or no Brogdon. You can consider him getting a bump in minutes, so George Hill will get a little time on the floor. Jose Calderon for Detroit has been playing pretty well as of late. I've been watching him, but I have not put him in my lineups. 21-plus minutes over the last 4 games, and he's actually put 224-plus games in those in that stretch of time, so definitely someone to consider there. Well, let's go to shooting guard. At shooting guard today, at the top, man, I want no part of Harden against Utah. I just learned a long time ago, don't mess around with Utah. DeMar DeRozan, same situation against Philly. He's going to get some Jimmy Butler defense. Jimmy Butler is back. So DeRozan, a tough matchup for me. I like his price at $8,700. But I'm going to come down to Devin Booker against the New York Knicks. I mean, that's got to be like, a play here that you must take advantage of. Granted, he may be a little bit highly owned today in this matchup because I think it's a great matchup for him. Granted, he was out for a while because of the hammy, but 35 minutes in his first game back, 28-7-7, 44.9. He's averaging pretty much 24 points per game, 4 rebounds, pretty much 7 assists, 38 fantasy points, 8,400. You need about 42 to meet value here, and he's 8,500 on DK, 42.43. Again, the price is really good on Fanduel. Not at all opposed to you guys playing him on DK. If you can get him in, definitely get him in here. He has bet 32 plus fantasy points over the course of his last 5 or 6 games that he has played, other than this game here where he only played 17 minutes, which I'm not even counting. Let's go over to the cruncher. And Devin Booker, I mean, as you can see, 50, 37, 50, 45, 40, 33, 49, 44. So pretty much from here on, about 37 plus in pretty much 6 or 7 out of his last 8 or 9 games. So he's been pretty solid. And then, of course, we know he's going to get usage. His usage is going to be up there. It's pretty much at about 30% or better. Minutes are going to be over 33, 34 minutes or better. And he's going to get about 20 somewhat shots per game on average. And he'll take some threes as well. He'll convert sometimes. He'll be converting well sometimes. He's just not as efficient. 3 of 9, 1 of 6 here. But he's a good free throw shooter if he gets to the line. When he is aggressive, he can get you some rebounds, not a whole lot. He definitely will give you some assists. And once in a while, an occasional steal or block. He's not really consistent with that, but he is capable of getting you that. And we'll love to have some of that here tonight if at all possible. But going up, he's out here on the road, shooting 46% field goal percentage. He shoots the 3 ball a lot better on the road at home than he does on the road. He's not shooting as well. He's only 27% field goal shooting from 3 on the road. So he's terrible. He is shooting 90% from the free throw line and is averaging 24 points per game and 38 fantasy points per game. The last time he played against the Knicks, he did put up a 21 spot and a 41 spot last season in 2 games, 21, and then this pretty much is a 41 spot. So he is capable of getting you at least 40. We know he has 50-point or better upside, so that's another thing he brings to the table. You're going up against the Knicks. They're 23rd in defending shooting guards thus far this year, allowing 34 fantasy points per game over the last 5 games against opposing shooting guards. And they gave up 51 to Oladipo in the last game out, 35 to Jeremy Lamb, 29 to Rodney Hood, and Mr. Allen Crabbe put up 27 against them. So they have had their issues a little bit there. Definitely like the spot here for Devin Booker in this game that's going to be a little paced up, and at the same time, teams with very, very weak defenses all across the board. Other possible plays here, man, I definitely love a number of other guys here too in the shooting guard position. I definitely Tim Hardaway is someone to consider in the same matchup. You must have a little exposure to him. I do love Buddy Hield and Bogdan Bogdanovic. I love the Sacramento backcourt, as I've discussed before. Buddy Hield here will be a nice spot going up against these guys. Minnesota is 20th in fantasy in defending shooting guards, and right now currently have given up 35.4 fantasy points per game. They gave up 45 to Booker recently, 32 to Thompson, and 39 to C.J. McCollum, and 37 to Jeremy Lamb. So I think Buddy Hield will be in a nice spot here as well. I also do like Dennis Schroeder in this matchup against Chicago. Got to take advantage of that as well. Chicago's 23rd in defending shooting guards, also giving up nearly 26 fantasy points per game as of late. And the whole idea is that he's going to be going up against Ryan Arcidiacono. There is no Zach LaVine. LaVine a little bit better defender, so I definitely think that's an advantage, a nice mismatch for a speedy guy like Dennis Schroeder, who takes about 15, 16 shots a game as well. So like the matchup against him versus Ryan Arcidiacono today. So Dennis Schroeder is definitely in play. And I would say here, coming down here in the bottom half, you got Bellinelli going up against Philly. That's his former team. Maybe a little revenge factor there. You got Pat Connaughton here. Got to consider him at 4,100, especially if there is no Middleton or no Brogdon. You could definitely consider him from Milwaukee there. Down here in the bottom tier, you got Luke Kennard, maybe a little bit a play here. Jamal Crawford, not high on Bradley, but Avery Bradley, obviously with Lou Will out, Avery Bradley is in play. He's getting more than enough minutes at 4,000. He's not a bad play. He's just more of a defender than a scorer, but if he can nail down a few shots, he could definitely meet value for you. And that is pretty much it. You got Alonzo Trier here now, all of a sudden now a game time decision, so keep your eye on that. If that is the case, then definitely Moutier would not be someone you could definitely pencil in. I think that's it for me as far as down here. All right, let's go to small forward. A small forward, you got Giannis at the top, man. You got KD and PG-13. And, you know, all of them, to me, are guys you could definitely consider. I'll probably have a lot of Giannis exposure if there is no Middleton for sure. Right now, again, you just got to stay on top of the news. If Middleton is out, definitely you want to pencil in Giannis. But again, you might have to pivot off of him because Giannis is going to be, in that case, he's going to be probably more the higher owned small forward for tonight. So I would probably come down to Durant or to George. But George, I think, is the better matchup. If you're not on Russell Westbrook, you definitely, like I've said before in previous videos, when I'm not on Westbrook, I am going to be on George. And they both have played well. And actually, George has been putting up better numbers than Westbrook. And they both have been shooting massive amount of shots and playing a lot of ball, a lot of minutes for their team. So PG-13 is definitely someone I really like. And every time I have chosen him and given him to you guys, he has actually performed well. So he's been solid for me all year. I will have exposure to him again, but I'm not going to speak upon him here again because the whole idea here at DFS Zone is to give you some options here. So if you're not on Giannis, you're not on Paul George, definitely I would consider Paul George. You will come down here. I'm not too high in Gallinari or TJ Warren in their matchup against New York. He's going to have to battle up against Kevin Knox or possibly even Vonleh in this spot because he's been playing more the four. TJ Warren at times, or at least he's been defending a lot of fours. Maybe with New York, he will have to do the same. I'm not too sure how they're going to go about that, but TJ Warren is someone I'm not going to consider. Rudy Gay too much up and down with the minutes and with the scoring. Joe Ingles is definitely someone I'm going to consider. We all know that before starting the video, we got notification that the trade with Phoenix and Washington is official. The teams have been, so these guys are going to be available in the next day or two to play Trevor Ariza and then, of course, Mr. Oubre going over to Phoenix. But Joe Ingles, I think, is in a good spot here against Houston. He's had some success against them, so I kind of like some of these guys down here in the 5,000 range. Kyle Anderson, game time decision with the ankle. If he is out, obviously, then you got JaMychal Green. You got a couple of guys that probably will be playing a little bit more minutes. But my favorite guy here is I'm coming down, and this is a big surprise. I am going with Mr. Bjelica here. 5,200 for this guy, and he's been playing massive minutes. He's taken advantage of the factors that Mr. Bagley is out, and he's the one who's been getting the bump in minutes, and he has taken advantage of it. And then also, this is also kind of like the revenge game. He was playing for the Timberwolves last year, so definitely a homecoming for him. So I like Bjelica here today. 12, pretty much almost 11.5 points per game, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 25 fantasy points per game at 5,002 here on Fanduel. You need 26 to meet value. He's only 4,400 on DK, so I love him in both platforms. He's definitely someone you can consider and slap in there in both of the platforms. 23 is pretty much what you need from him on DK. He's averaging 25. 4 out of his last pretty much 5 games, he's been at 24 plus. Plus, he's had 2 40-point games because you got to round this off to 40 here and this 40 here, smacked in between the last 3 games. We come over here small forward, and we'll go to Mr. Bjelica, and he's been pretty much in the green. 4 out of the last 5 games, he's met value. His price tag is at 4,100. That's bumped all the way up to 5,200 in the last game, and he's still 5,200 today. I'll take advantage of that. He's getting more than enough minutes. You need him to get at least 24, 25 minutes or better. He's been averaging pretty much, well, in this game here, he only had 22 minutes, but over here, 35 and 29. I would say he's more at about 26, 27 minutes per game, and that's good enough for me. Usage rate has been up and down, but on the norm, he's about 16, 17%, and he has had as high as 20 and 26%. He's not going to take a ton of shots, maybe more like 9 or 10 pretty much on average, or 8 or 9 a game, but he does take a number of threes, and if he hits those threes and he gets going, he's going to be just fine. And the beauty of that is Sacramento is one of the top 3-point shooting teams in the league, probably in the top 3 easily. And Minnesota is not the greatest as far as defending threes, but good spot for Bjelica here. And on top of that, he brings some rebounding. As you can see here, he'll give you a few assists. He's not a big passing guy, but he recently got 4 blocks. He's not usually a big shot blocker, but can get you some blocks and some steals, which is all additional fantasy points for us. He's been good, man. Shooting the ball really well at home. He's 51% field goal percentage. Away from home. At home, he's shooting better. Let's put it that way. He's shooting okay on the road, but still pretty good. 51% field goal percentage away from home, 42% from 3, and he's averaging 10 points per game and 23 fantasy points per game. He has played Minnesota twice this year, 27-minute average in those 2 games, shot 54% against them and 40% from 3, so he has done pretty darn well, 19 points and 36 fantasy points in those 2 games combined on average. So I definitely like Mr. Belicia here. Minnesota 24th in defending small forwards. They're allowing nearly 30 fantasy points per game at 29.6 points per game to opposing small forwards. And in the last game, they gave Mr. Bridges of Phoenix 35. The game before that, Durant had 40. And then the game before that, Mr. Batum from Charlotte put up 41 against them. So again, during that stretch, they have had a little bit of issues. I expect this guy to be able to meet value and then some. So Belicia is in play for me. He's my favorite small forward. But again, I told you some of the other guys I'm having some exposure to. You could have some exposure to Bridges here as well, going up against the Knicks. They don't have Kelly Oubre just yet. I think when Kelly Oubre gets there's going to be somehow, some way they're going to utilize Oubre, who is very, very explosive as well. And down here at the bottom half, obviously with James Ennis out, that's obviously a bump for Green as well as Mr. House. So you got to consider those 2 guys if you want to come down that low. Not a whole lot I love down here. Caspi, same situation with Memphis. Same thing with Jermichael Green. I think those guys get a bump with Kyle Anderson if he happens to be out. And that is pretty much it, man. Let's go to power forward. At power forward at the top, man, Blake Griffin definitely in play. I will have exposure to Blake Griffin. He has done well against Milwaukee. He's more than likely get a lot of Giannis defense. I'm not too concerned there because Blake is very, very physical. And he's able to not only bring the ball down court and be a point forward, but he's at the same time very, very good underneath inside the box as well. So Blake Griffin, 9,500 is in play. You need about 47 from him here. And he is pretty much averaging 26 points a game, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 44 fantasy points per game. You need about 47 here to meet value on Fanduel. On DK's 9,000 on the nose, so you need 45. And he's averaging 44, 45 pretty much on average. And he's at 44 plus in the last 2 games, 3 games, 4, pretty much 4 games in a row, 40 or better in 6 games straight. So he hasn't seen anything under 40 in 6 games straight, which is pretty darn good. That means he's showing a little bit of consistency there. And if he's that consistent, I would think he's a pretty decent cash play to take a chance on today for you cash play players. But he has 55, 60-point upside. So obviously I would love to have him on a GPP as well. So let's go over to power forward. And Blake Griffin. And as you can see, pretty solid. Again, the minutes are there, man. He's going to play. He's playing 36-plus minutes over the last 4 games. Usage rate is through the roof, nearly 30 to 31% on average. And he's going to take anywhere between, I say, 17, 18 shots per game. And then, of course, there are some games where he's going to have a very big usage rate with a lot of shots. He is capable of hitting the 3. He's shooting about maybe 4 or 5 threes, about 3 or 4 threes per game on average. He's had some games where he's shot more than you would figure he would. And he's physical enough. He does get to the foul line. He has to be a little more consistent there. As you can see, he's not that good, maybe about 70% free throw shooter. And then, of course, he brings the rebounding, and he's able to get some assists, and he also brings a little bit of defense, capable of getting you a block and a steal any given day. Can do it on a regular basis. So Blake Griffin is definitely in play for me. His home and away splits have been pretty good at home. 46% field goal percentage thus far this year, 33% from 3, 24 points per game from the floor, and 44 fantasy points as well. Versus Milwaukee, he's played 1 game this year, 30 minutes. Pretty much he played 30 minutes in that game, put up 31 points, 46 fantasy points. And, of course, like I said before, he has 55-point upside. He doesn't have huge numbers against this team, but I think that today is a good spot for him to be in. Milwaukee's 26th in defending power forwards. They're allowing 31.8, so pretty much 32 fantasy points to opposing power forwards over the course of the last 5 games. Thaddeus Young put up 60 against them, 36 by Siakam, 41 by Blake Griffin himself not too long ago, and 38 from Jabari Parker. So, again, and they were all defended by Mr. Giannis. So, again, definitely like Blake Griffin here. Other options you may have here, which I do like a number of guys in the lower tier range. I do like Lauri Markkanen here a whole lot at 7,000. You need pretty much 35 from him there to meet value. And he's going up against OKC. They're 14th in defending power forwards. And as of late, they've been giving up 38.5 fantasy points per game to opposing power forwards. They gave up 38 to Gallinari, 74 to Anthony Davis, 40 to Blake Griffin. And Mr. Markkanen did put up 45 against them the first time around. So he is someone to definitely consider. You got Kevin Knox here for the New York Knickerbockers. I do like the Knickerbockers forwards today against Chicago. Knox as well as Vanderlei. Vanderlei is a lot cheaper if you didn't want to go with Knox, but Knox is more of the scorer, who could shoot from the three-point line. He's taking more than enough shots. If we go and take a look at him real quickly here, Kevin Knox, as you can see, over 33 minutes per game over the last 4 games. And then look at the shots, 15 shots pretty much from the floor on average. He did take 25 in this game here, and he's taking about 6 or 7 threes per game over the last 4. So he is getting tons of shots, opportunities, and he brings a little bit of rebounding, not a whole lot of assists, and he's capable of getting some blocks and steals, so he brings a little bit of defense. His price tag is up. No doubt about it. He has jumped up $1,100 since his last game, and he's been going from, as back here, he was almost $3,600 and $4,400 just about a week and a half back, and he has come up a long way because of the amount of minutes they're giving him right now. So Kevin Knox in play, going up against Phoenix. Phoenix has been giving up 31 fantasy points per game, ladies and gentlemen, over the last few games. They did give up to Saric just recently. Dario Saric put up 33, Gallinari 36, Rudy Gay 29, and they were all defended by T.J. Warren. I don't think that's a good matchup for T.J. Warren against Kevin Knox, as well as I don't believe even if he goes and he defends Vanderlei, is going to be a tough spot for him. T.J. Warren is not much of a rebounder, so I don't see that happening. And if he does go against Kevin Knox, I think Kevin Knox will do very well. Other than that, Noah Vanderlei is in play as well, 5,500. You cannot go wrong with Vanderlei either. He's playing more than enough minutes. His minutes are there for his price tag. You pretty much need about 27 fantasy points, and he's been putting up pretty much 26 in 3 out of the last 4 games, and he had a 41 spot, and we know that he has 40-point upside, as you can see already. And there are those moments where he takes more than enough shots. We just need him to rebound and to block some shots and get some steals, and he does bring that to the table, as you can see here. So he is someone to consider here, definitely if he's going to be defended by T.J. Warren. So Vanderlei is someone to consider as well. I will probably have some exposure to him. You got to also consider here in the bottom tier, I do like a number of guys right here in the bottom. Josh Jackson against New York, definitely someone you should consider. Like I said, Noah Vanderlei, Bobby Portis, his minutes are slightly going up. I think I need to see his minutes a little bit more, like at 25-30 for this price tag. He's at 5,300. You need about 26, 27 fantasy points from him to meet value, but it's not enough minutes for me. But we know he's capable. He's a one fantasy point per minute guy, so he'll be someone to definitely consider in the long term. In the next couple of games, depending on the minutes that he gets over the next few games that he plays. But Vanderlei over here, Dario Saric has been playing over 30 minutes, I think, over the last couple of games. Yes, he has 30, 31, and 34. Been solid, 2 solid 30-plus games. Fantasy-wise, at 5,300, that is definitely very good minutes and definitely a nice fantasy point totals there over the last couple of games. This may be a nice spot for him in a paced-up game against Sacramento. Definitely like Dario Saric there. Jermichael Green is someone to consider here, especially if Kyle Anderson is not out. He's capable, and not only that, with Jaren Jackson, anything is possible because he gets into foul trouble, and that obviously opens up the door for Green to get more minutes. Rashawn Holmes is definitely someone to consider here also. Need 25 pretty much at 5,000 going up against the Knicks in a paced-up game. So, yeah, there's a couple of guys there that I like at that price tag. Down here at the bottom, man, Luke Cornett. Remember, Mitchell Robinson of the New York Knicks is out with a bad ankle. So Luke Cornett has been getting a few minutes as of late. He could be a nice little drop spot play here at 3,500. I mean, he got 24 minutes 2 games ago. He only got 9 minutes the previous game, but he got nearly 1 fantasy point per minute. So it's someone to consider. You got to watch out for that. It's very tough to gauge with New York, so always keep that in mind if you're watching the games. Obviously, Coach Fizdale is still trying to figure out all these young kids that he has. So, we're going to have to deal with that. So, again, if you're looking to play the New York Knicks, play some of the guys that have been getting some minutes as of late. Tim Hardaway is definitely a sure-in. It looks like Emmanuel Mudiay is pretty much the point guard. And then in the front court, definitely Cantor is another guy that, just doesn't get enough minutes, but it seems like Kevin Knox is. All right, let's go over to center. At center, Joel Embiid, good spot. Karl Anthony Towns has destroyed Sacramento. I will have some exposure to Karl Anthony Towns. I like his matchup better than Embiid's. Drummond, matchup here should be good for Drummond at home against Milwaukee. I mean, Brook Lopez is, but Brook Lopez likes to stay outside the box, so it makes Drummond obviously play a little bit away from the basket, and that is a concern there. But, I mean, he has had games where he has done well against these guys. So, could be someone you could have some exposure to. I think Karl Anthony Towns is the best bet here. Marc Gasol versus Golden State is always, Golden State doesn't have, until they get Boogie Cousins, I definitely wouldn't mind a little bit of Marc Gasol, but I probably won't be a whole lot on Marc Gasol today. Definitely love Nurkic in this matchup against the Clippers. We always like to, pick on the Clippers, especially. Clippers are giving up 37.4 fantasy points per game over the last 5 games to center, so Nurkic is definitely someone in play. But my favorite plays are Adams and Cantor here. I love to pay all the way down. Adams is in a good spot against Chicago. Chicago's coming in as the worst team in fantasy point totals giving up to centers thus far in this particular slate. So they're giving up 45.3 fantasy points per game. So you got to take advantage of that. We don't expect Steven Adams to go out there and get 50 or 60, but if he can get us 40 to 45 at 7,300, I'll be pretty happy with that as a GPP play. Obviously, I'm looking for always 10 fantasy points more, so I want him to at least get 9x in this matchup, and I think he can do that. And on top of that, I think Cantor could do the same as well if he gets more than enough minutes. So those are my 2 favorite. But I'm going to discuss Steven Adams. He has 16 points, pretty much 10 rebounds a game, 1.5 assists, nearly 2 assists a game, 35.8 fantasy points. He's at 36 fantasy points per game, 7,300. You need 36. On DK, he is 6,900. You only need 34. 7 out of his last 8 games, he's pretty much at 33 plus. So he is close to his average. I would say he's not a bad cash play for you cash play players because he has been consistent enough. 7 out of 8 games at 33 plus. He's definitely a nice cash play in a good favorable matchup today. So, maybe I'll even do a cash line today. So Steven Adams is definitely someone to consider on both platforms. Pretty consistent, and he has the upside to play him on a GPP, and especially in a matchup like this. Let's go over to center, and we're going to go to Mr. Adams. He brings up physicality that Chicago definitely doesn't have somebody to go up with him against. It's definitely not going to be Robin Lopez. But the consistency is there. 30-somewhat fantasy points pretty much on average. The minutes are there as well. He is getting about 33 to 34 minutes a game. The last 3 games, he's averaging more like about 33, 34 just on the last few games. And surprisingly, he's taking tons of shots. 14 and 20 in these games. Definitely played very well against Denver and Jokic a couple of games back. And he definitely dominated against the Clippers, which, of course, we always like to, pick on the Clippers. He didn't play particularly well in that one as far as fantasy point totals, but he did have 24% usage rate there. And he's going to get some shots. He doesn't get a ton of shots. He's pretty much at about, I would say, he's at 11, 12 shots a game, pretty much on average. What he brings is some rebounding, some physicality. He'll get some blocks. He'll get some steals. He handles the ball very well. As you can see, only 1 turnover a game. And as you can see, he's been double-digit scoring from the floor for pretty much 7, 8 games in a row. So he's been really, really consistent and solid. His home and away splits have been pretty good too. At home this year, 54% field goal percentage. He's averaging about 9 rebounds a game, 1 block, 1 steal, 14 points per game, 35 fantasy points per game on average. He did play against Chicago 1 game already this year. He played 31 minutes in that game, shot 53% from the floor, had 10 rebounds, 1 block, and 2 steals, put up 21 points from the floor, and 38 fantasy points pretty much. Yep, 38 fantasy points in that game against Chicago already. I think he definitely has an opportunity here to get 45 or better today. And again, if you're not on him, Chicago's coming in 18th in defending centers, allowing 45.3 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 5 games. These are the numbers: 48 to Aldridge, 48 to Vucevic, 43 to Cauley Stein, 56 to Daniel Thesis, and 52 to Mr. Miles Turner. That is incredible, man. They have given up tons and tons of fantasy points, man. Please, Steven Adams, put up a 50 spot today, buddy. Good for cash, good for freaking GPP opportunity, Steven Adams. I definitely like Steven Adams. Other than that, I'm going to be on Mr. Cantor from my New York Knicks. If he gets at least some minutes, give him 30 to 35 minutes, coach, and Cantor will put up 40 or better for certain. Cantor here, 7,000. You need 35. He and DK 6,700. You need 33. Again, if he gets 33 to 35 minutes or better, if he gets 30 minutes to 35 minutes or better, I think he can put us 40 or 45 or better in this game. I mean, he has 50-point upside. We know that. He's definitely a rebounding machine. Very athletic, runs the floor very well. He's definitely someone to consider, man. Phoenix, 27th to defending centers, allowing 34.5 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 5 games. They just recently gave up 60 to Towns, 29 to DeAndre Jordan, and 43 to my boy Bam Adebayo. So Mr. Cantor definitely should be someone to consider. You could even play Brook Lopez. He had 5,600. He's been pretty solid. He's been at 5,600. You need about 27 from him, and he's been playing more than enough minutes to cover 27, and he's been putting up some good fantasy points. 3 out of his last 4 games, 31 plus, 30 plus, and he's had pretty much 23 or better in 5, 6, 7, almost 8 straight games. Which is above his average. So he's actually trending slowly but surely up, and we know he's very good from shooting from 3. And, he's not going to, as you can see, he's not going to get tons of rebounds because he's more of a shooting type of center. But he is a big guy, tough, can get a lot of easy baskets. In this matchup here, I think he could be a very nice little sneaky play. If you guys are playing multiple lineups, definitely Brook Lopez is someone to consider. And that's pretty much it. I don't really am looking at anybody down here. Kafus may be someone, Costa Kufus, whatever his name is, KK, he could be someone to consider. And now Mitchell Robinson now is a game time decision, but if he's out, like I said, you gotta consider Luke Cornett. But if he's in, then you're gonna definitely have to speak. You're gonna definitely have him have some exposure as well. But I'm on Cantor again. Cantor. I do like Nurkic as well, but I think Adams and Cantor are my favorite. Nurkic is in play for me. I think Gasol could be someone to consider, and Karl-Anthony Towns is definitely someone that I will have in some of my lineups. And you can sprinkle in there Embiid if you can. I mean, he's in a good matchup. Sacramento gives up 32.6. I have him here on my log. 32.6 fantasy points per game over the last 4 games. Didn't get to look it over completely, but 4 games, they've been pretty much averaging about 32 fantasy points given up to opposition. So that might be someone to consider as well. That's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. That is pretty much it, man. Again, a couple guys there that you can just put together in a player pool. Again, like I say, I always want to give people options. I'm not going to just say, I'm going to tell you who I'm on. I'm going to tell you who I like, and I'm going to discuss a few other possible plays and some plays down in the bottom tier and the mid tier that might be appealing, as well as possibly some drop spots opportunities as well. You always got to look at and be on top of the injury news because that opens up value. So make sure you stay on top of those. And that's basically it, man. I wish you guys a lot of luck. Please drop a like on the video. If you're new to the channel and you have not subscribed as of yet, please do so down below. And make sure you put on your post notifications. This way you don't miss out on any one of these NBA or NFL lineup advice videos. And with that, I wish you guys a lot of luck, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.